that there's 7 stocks in the S&P 500 that are responsible for basically all the return this year. So it's the S&P 7 that have really carried the S&P 500. I've been advocating more like 30, 60, 10. So 30 stocks, 60 bonds, and 10 real assets. That real asset that I've liked is gold. Gone up this year, but it's a very hard time staying above 2,000. Gone from 1,600 up to nearly 2,000 now. And I like gold just because it's a kind of a real money sort of a thing. But I really don't like commodities. I haven't liked them for a year, just because the economy's weakening, and we're probably headed to a recession sooner rather than later, and commodity prices probably won't go up. And your treasury yield, it's up at 369. Copper gold ratio suggests that the 10-year treasury yield might have fair value down at around 2% or so. So there's certainly room for the 10-year treasury to rally, particularly based on copper gold and on the idea that inflation is declining. And then we see investment grade credit at 5.4. So lots of yield, unlike 3 years ago when we were living in the fixed income dungeon. That's gone now. There's plenty of opportunities. Back a year and a half ago, stocks were cheap to bonds, they were cheap to treasury bonds and bonds broadly. Thanks to this increase in yields, bonds are absolutely cheap to stocks. That agency mortgage is the cheapest part on a risk-adjusted basis, certainly, in the entire fixed income market. Clearly, interest rates are a lot higher now than they were 2.5 years ago. So bonds are much more attractive, and their inflationary nemesis has been in retreat. Monetary contraction does take pressure off of inflation. But it's interesting that the money supply is now the most negative that it's been since the Depression. That the CPI should be coming down. It's at 4.9 right now. It's been coming down very fast, almost exactly the speed at which it went up. I would expect CPI will fall further, particularly if the recession shows up. Shelter represents more than half of the inflation right now. What used to be called wholesale prices, the producer price index, year over year, it's down to 2.3, and it leads the CPI, so there's a reason to believe the CPI will come down. And I really think the Fed screwed up by waiting about a year too long to raise interest rates. I think that's why inflation got as high as it did. When they raised rates the first time, probably should have already raised rates by 200 basis points by the time they actually got started. And I think if they had raised interest rates sooner and faster, we wouldn't have had yields go up as much. We might not have had these failures in the banking system. Urban legend that I keep hearing in financial media that these banks were badly managed because they should have hedged out the interest rate risk. It doesn't work that way. You can't hedge out the interest rate risk without going back to a zero interest rate. There's no free money. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. If you want a yield above zero, you want to buy the long bond at 2%, well, if you hedge out that the duration risk, you're going to be right back at a zero yield. That the fiscal responses to recessions have really gotten out of control. And here we are in an economy that is supposedly growing, and yet we have 7.3% budget deficit as a percentage of GDP. We can see that it's climbing very quickly. And so we're probably headed towards a much bigger deficit as a percentage of GDP, particularly if we go into a recession. Even politicians have to start admitting that these issues have to be getting addressed, and not 10 years from now. It has to be addressed in the next few years. With interest expense going up this much, it's going to swallow all of the tax receipts in the next few years if we stay on this track. We have the look of soon to be at the front end of a recession. So if the unemployment rate rises in any meaningful way, it would probably be a recession signal. We are now seeing credit card usage go way up. So we have a lot of problems with debt and its management. We have a lot of problems with debt and its management. With debt and its management.